Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Horror Podcast. I'm Shawn.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ray.
And it's a Friday. I almost said it's Thursday. Yeah.
It is Friday.
It is Friday. It's been a long week. So, guys, how are you? How's the holiday season treating you?
Still alive so far.
Yep, pretty much.
The best we can ask for, 2020 Christmas. Please,
Yep.
please stay alive.
Right?
So, what it's been, I know you guys have had rough work schedules, so it's been a while. So, fucking feel it, Chris. So, originally, I saw this as an opportunity for Chris and I to talk about some podcasts and stuff. Chris, you recommended the Black Tapes to me recently, and John Bickness is probably listening to this going, fucking Baker, I recommended it to you like a year ago at least. And he's right, he did. And I listened to one episode because when I re-listened to the first episode after you just recommended it to me last week, I remembered it. I don't know why I didn't continue
really
with
familiar to you, sure.
Yeah, totally. I have no idea why I didn't continue with it. But before we get into talking about the Black Tapes, I just want to say, I definitely want you to recommend more stuff to me, because that was quite an experience, definitely. And I know you're also doing a bunch of audiobooks too. So actually, how about this? Chris, give me the best audiobook and the best podcast that you've listened to in the last, 3 months or whatever.
In the last 3 months, okay, one of the best audiobooks that I've listened to was Devolution by Max Brooks.
Oh, yeah, the Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's essentially, it's like a found footage type thing, which is kind of interesting in book form. But yeah, basically it's all kind of from journals and things like that have been found. Really, really great premise. The audiobook is fantastic. It's read by full cast, including the main gal is Judy Greer.
Oh, really?
It's also read by Steven Weber. Is in there too. I believe it's Steven Weber. I mean, this is you say go back about 3 months. That was about 3 months ago.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, you can go back further. That was just a off the top of the head.
But that was a great book. For those of you who don't know, I'll do a quick little rundown about just the kind of rough plot. So it's about this couple, this gal and this guy, who move into this new futuristic kind of template community up in, I want to say it's Washington, where it's basically like this little kind of cul-de-sac loop kind of thing, but it's entirely like self-sufficient. A lot of things are automated, yada yada. But then all of a sudden, one of Washington's volcanoes erupts.
Ooh.
And because of this, there's fires everywhere. There is, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what the name of the kind of thing was. But basically, they become isolated. They become stuck out there. There's no way for them to get back to the main road at all. There's basically all these kind of almost permanent kind of like landslides that are happening around them. So they just figure, okay, well, we'll hunker down. We got enough supplies. Water can be recycled. Yeah, all this kind of stuff. And then they kind of start hearing noises in the middle of the night. And it basically turns out that, lo and behold, there is this tribe of big feet, I don't know what you would say, who, because of this eruption, has been pushed out of their natural territory where they stay. And it basically, they start kind of picking them off one by one. dragging them away to presumably eat them. And it's just really this really cool, interesting take on a survival kind of vibe.
It sounds fucking great, man. So it's not just a couple that's trapped; it's everybody in the community, and then
It's everybody in the community, and I want to say the community is about maybe 10, 12 people.
Okay.
So it's not a very large community, but there are about maybe 5 or 6 houses. I listened to the audiobook. I have the novel itself. Inside the novel itself, it has like a sketch drawing of what the area looks like, just to kind of give the reader, some frame of mind.
So
and now Max Brooks, he's one of my favorites.
Well, I know, and so if for those of you out there that don't know, or you might be like, wait, I know that name. It's obviously, oh goddamn,
the author of the World War Z, and also
yes, but his father is
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. Thank you. I knew it wasn't Max, but I'm like, starts with an M, 3 letters. Hello.
His father is Mel Brooks. But what's really interesting with his writing is that it's really not they're not comedy. Yeah, he did World War Z. He did this newest one, Devolution. He originally wrote the zombie survival guide. That was his first kind of foray into into writing. But yeah, he does, Mel Brooks being his father definitely did help out in a lot of ways. The biggest being, my favorite all-time, horror related audiobook is World War Z, which if you've seen the Brad Pitt film, I am very sorry.
Yeah, don't judge the book. The film
has literally, it's as far away from the book as you can possibly get.
The movie's just awful. Even if you liked the movie, because I know there are people out there that do, and I don't want to step on their toes. I did not like it. I
do. I'll step on those toes.
I was dragged to see the movie, and I really did not like it. But I will say the one thing about it that I walked out, I was like, okay, at least this. So it, famously had this insane ending that then they brought in Damon Lindelof, which is always kind of a mixed bag, and he rewrote it. And they went from, it was some huge special effects laden, multi-million-dollar fight scene, battle, whatever. And they went in a different direction with the rewrite, and it ends very, very quietly. And I was impressed with the fact that the people that made that movie, and as much as I disliked it, had the presence of mind to go in that direction, because I would have thought it would have just been like, they would have looked at that rewrite and been like, no way, bro, it's got to be all like fucking torpedoes and zombie, and it wasn't. So I still hated it, but when you're trapped in a boat and you have to eat rat turds, you pretend the rat turds are Cheez-Its, I guess. So that's me, that was the Cheez-It. I was like, okay,
you can pretend all you want to, but those Cheez-Its are still going to be rat turds at the end of the day.
True. But, everybody, different strokes for different folks. So people like it, it's fine. But the book is it's so not that movie.
The book is utterly fantastic. It is one of my favorite novels. I think I've read it at least 3 times. I know that over the years, 'cause I think it came out in 2005, I think I've actually gifted that book to at least 5 or 6 people.
You gave it to me.
That's right. Yeah, anytime I see it at a thrift store or anything like that, I'll just instinctively buy one just to have on hand to give to somebody because it's that good.
It's one of the things I love about you is you spread literature. It's fucking great. It's awesome. I love that, man. I love that.
But so World War Z, the audiobook is also that is my favorite all-time audiobook. That's one I've listened to at least 10 times in the past 15 years since it's originally come out. Again, the movie and the book, they have 2 similarities. One being that the narrator of the book, as well as Brad Pitt's character in the movie, works for the CDC.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only other thing that they have in common is that it involves zombies. That's it.
Right. Well,
that's the only similarities.
the book is like epistolary. So I don't know if it counts as epistolary style. I think it would. Or is epistolary simply letters? Because it's not letters, but it's an oral history, right? So it's like people being interviewed about what happened.
That is the subtitle of the book. It is World War Z, an oral history of the zombie wars. Whereas like the film, Brad Pitt, he's working for the CDC. He's jet setting around all the different countries trying to find a cure for whatever it is.
It's so lame.
The book, it is 12 years after the zombie wars has ended, and now he's going around interviewing people to get their stories. And the way that it's structured is he interviews somebody, about the onset of the zombie plague. And it just kind of snowballs from there all the way up until, the end of, when mankind basically came back from the brink.
Yeah.
And it's utterly fantastic. They talk to a variety of people from a doctor in China to a hired bodyguard in Florida or something or other. But getting back to what I was saying about him being Mel Brooks' son, I think one of the biggest things is that when it was time to do the audiobook, they pulled some strings, pulled some connections, because the cast of the audiobook is fantastic. Every chapter of the book is the interviewer, who's narrated actually by Max Brooks, and he's interviewing a different subject. So each chapter has a different actor doing the voice, but it has everybody in it from Henry Rollins to Mark Hamill, Nathan Fillion, Carl Reiner, Rob Reiner. There's so many people. I know. I mean, John Turturro's in there. They even got Martin Scorsese.
Wow.
Is reading one of the. I mean, it's. I mean, you can sit there and just spend all day listening to this, and it just paints such a picture, and it's so true to how things would possibly go down,
right?
That the CDC itself, the actual CDC, not the one in the book, they've actually acknowledged the book, and they have said that yes, things probably would happen like this. It's about as accurate as you could get. And it has since spawned a series of, imitator
definitely
books and things like that.
I will say they are like, I've always been wary of audiobooks. I don't even know why, but you clued me in on the Sandman one, and I still, believe it or not, I haven't finished it. I'm almost done. I save them, so I listen to like one every like 2 weeks or so, but I've also in the meantime started to listen to other stuff. So I started that Alien 3 script, which is better than the Dark Horse adaptation of the comic by William Gibson. I'm sorry, the Dark Horse comic that is an adaptation of the original Alien 3 screenplay by William Gibson, which was never made. And the audiobook is better, but I'm like maybe almost halfway through, and I'm still not loving it. And I don't like the other Alien 3 either, so I think it's just...
Yeah, I'm not, I didn't really care for the story. The audiobook, the presentation of it is fantastic.
It is. It really is. It sounds like I'm listening to a movie with the picture off.
Yeah, exactly.
Sandman one especially is cool if you know Sandman, because it's like there's very minor differences, but I'm like, Jesus, this is the fucking comic. Like if they ever make a movie of it, no matter how good it's going to be, it's not going to be an exact adaptation of the comic. This is.
Well, they are making a television series.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. I know that it's in pre-production or whatever.
Neil's very heavily involved with it. He's been given a lot of updates, as it goes.
It's really, it still will be limited by the visual spectrum, and this is not. So dude, the score, everything, it's like listening to like a huge Hollywood movie without picture. I was so impressed with the presentation.
Yeah,
Well,
and when it comes to the audio books, a lot of it, obviously is going to be in the production. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks. I've listened to some really shitty audiobooks where if I would have read the book, I would have been really bummed out that I wasted the time on it. But because of the performance and the Foley and just all the ambiance music and things like that, it helps to elevate really bad books as well.
Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, one key thing I've noticed is if you ever see an audiobook and it's produced by Dirk, I want to say Dirk Meags, Mag.
Or is it Mags? I think it's Mags.
Yeah. He's the one who he did he did Sandman.
And he did Alien 3.
He did a bunch of these Alien ones as well too. I think he does a lot of Doctor Who stuff.
I think you're right.
Even so, with those, he tends to get full cast readings. Lots of that Foley sound effects. Lots of kind of music and just things to really help to elevate it from just an audio book to just an audio experience.
Yeah,
basically.
right. Ray, what were you gonna say?
I used to. I forget the name of the service, but I used to have it Audible, and I'll have to restart that. But just to add that there was because I remember thinking I needed to listen to that, and I just never got a chance to when I had the Audible subscription. I need to restart it now that I've especially got this new job where I have to drive around a lot. With that Max Brooks, that he did an interview with Nerdist, I think, and now it's called because I remember him there was an interview on podcast, a Nerdist podcast on like 8/24. I think it's I looked it up, August 30th, 2016, where he talked about the book and about writing it and about the audiobook. And it's a really interesting interview, and like a lot of apparently it was really important to him to do an audiobook. Like there had been an audiobook that had been put out by the publisher and he wasn't happy with it. Because first they put out an abridged version, then they put out an unabridged version, but he felt like it could be more. And apparently one of the big things for him was that growing up, he has dyslexia, and he had so much difficulty reading that his mother introduced him to audiobooks. And it was his way of experiencing reading and getting into reading and writing. And it was so important to him that he was like, I want to push. Like once it got really popular and it started to really become a bestseller, he went back to the publisher and said, I want to redo the audiobook. And I can get a cast to do this. And I went, okay, well, yeah, if you want to do that, and we'll give you the money, and you get the people, we'll do it. And yeah, he did basically call in favors from like famous friends, like having, had his father be his father his whole life. He knew people in the industry, and he basically went up to them and said, will you be in my audiobook? I have this book I wrote, and it's really good, and I think you'd be fantastic. And they were like, yeah, sure. And like, it's crazy the people that he got to agree to come on. But yeah, it's an interesting interview, but like, it's a good. I mean, I really like the book. It was one of my favorite books when I read it. And the movie, I never watched. I only have seen parts and bits and pieces of it because I love the book so much and how much of what it was that I just couldn't sit myself down to watch it. And the little bit that I did see, again, I don't like to necessarily slam what someone likes. It feels like big budget intro horror to me. Like, it
feels like that Brad Pitt's production company was like, nobody's done a huge mega blockbuster with zombies yet. Let's be the ones to do it.
And what? And they made a PG-13.
Yeah, on top of it. Well, because of course, if you're going to make a mega blockbuster, then okay, somebody's going to be like, calm down now. It's got to be PG-13.
I don't know. I feel the same way about that movie. That kind of the way I felt after I saw Train to Busan. Because there's no, like, you don't actually see people getting bit, and there's not, like, they're not, like, consuming people or anything. It's just them angry and attacking people. Like, there's honestly more violence in 28 Days Later.
Well, 28 Days Later, without even having seen either of them, I know it's a better movie. I mean, I know it's a pretty ignorant statement, but no, somebody at work recently watched Train to Busan, and I have been adamant I'm not interested. And they basically, this friend of mine at work, he comes up, he's like, dude, you've made the right choice. Stick with 28 Days Later. It's a better movie. And he said the same thing. He's like, they don't actually eat it. He's like, you don't see anything. Which, I don't know, whatever. I mean, if somebody did a PG-13 zombie movie right, it would be one thing. But I just feel like it's both are probably, well, World War Z is definitely too many cooks ruining the, whatever that fucking saying is. Anyway.
The thing that irritates me about that is that, when I first heard that they were going to be making a film, obviously I had my hesitation about it. Then I heard that, Brad Pitt's, his company won a bidding war for it. I'm like, okay, well, there might be something good here. Obviously, we did not get something good.
No.
But what really frustrated me was finding out who he was in the bidding war with.
Who?
Leo DiCaprio. His production company wanted to adapt it.
I mean, I don't know that there's any guarantee that like, I like both, although I haven't.
Oh no, I like Brad Pitt.
I haven't liked a lot of what he's done in the last so many years, but I really like him, and I think that I used to think back in the day, I'm like, man, he chooses his roles. He's smart. He knows what good is, and I feel that way about Leo too. And look what happened with Brad Pitt. So it could have happened with Leo's too. So I don't know.
That is true.
We got what we got. Maybe in 5 years we'll get a TV series, like a good TV series that adapts it in the right way, because it could be done.
That's exactly what it has to be. It has to be an episodic anthology, based series. Where you have your one grounded character, of the narrator / CDC interviewer who spans every episode, and then sit down in whatever setting with whoever the star of the episode is.
Yeah. And
then they tell you their story, and then just fade out from that into their story, and there's your episode, because they're all fairly short stories. They can all fit into an episode.
Yeah, right.
Episode, and there's enough chapters. You have 3-4 seasons of 10 episode seasons.
Definitely.
So if you're listening, Shudder, get on.
Right. How about it? You too. I just want to kick this out because I literally just watched this right before we came on. I knew we were doing this today. I saw yesterday, too late to watch it last night, that the Castle Freak remake dropped on Shudder yesterday. Barbara Crampton produced.
I want to watch that.
You say again?
I want to watch that,
dude. So
watch the trailer for it.
Let me just say that
that's not the picture you sent us, is it?
It is the picture.
Oh, that's kind of a spoiler, you bastard.
Dude, oh my God. Directed by Tate Steinsick. Written by Kathy Charles. Based on, obviously, Stuart Gordon, Charles Band. Famously, the way the original one got made was Stuart Gordon walked into Charles Band's office and saw a poster for something called Castle Freak. And he's like, is that something you're making? He's like, well, I haven't yet. And he's like, can I make it? And he's like, well, as long as there's a castle and a freak, yeah. And so he made it, and he got final cut. He got the cast who he wanted. So he used Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton because he had, just worked with them in Reanimator, or not just, but a few years before. And so now Barbara Crampton's producing this. And I didn't know what to expect. The way I found out it dropped, I saw in another, we have our the Horror Vision Horror Podcast discussion group on Facebook. Please come and find us. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in there. But one of the other groups that I was in previously, still, interacting. I saw somebody post like, "Oh, it's fucking awful," and I was like, "Oh, really? Like weird." But then I saw, but admittedly, the fucking original was too. And I'm like, okay, well. My interests don't align with yours, sir, so let's just go our separate ways. And man, I didn't know what to expect. And I will say there's some bumpy acting for sure. Nothing terrible, but there's a few things. There was one character in particular I really liked the casting and I liked him, but he would deliver lines sometimes where I was like, overall, fucking great practical effects, great setup, really like true to the story where, in the original, Combs is this recovering alcoholic who cost his family the sight of one of his daughters, blinded her in a car accident, and the other one died. So it's this estranged family, and they inherit this castle, so they go and, oh, there's a freak and all this fucking weird shit. Somewhat based on Lovecraft's The Outsider, which has always been one of my favorite Lovecraft stories. But this takes it, it's different, and I could tell right away, like the way it starts, there's this like party, and I wasn't sure if it was in Europe or the States or whatever, and it just had this really, reminded me of Demons. And just the look of it. And so I'm like, oh, wow, I think I'm going to like this. And then it's not a family. It's a boyfriend, girlfriend, car accident, his fault. She gets blinded. However long later, they've readjusted, and she inherits this fucking castle from a mother she didn't know she had because she was adopted. So they go over there, and then the plan is to just sell it, and then their friends are going to come over and help them, like, with all of the, like, selling things and whatever. And I really liked it. Like, so the third act I loved. I liked the whole movie. The third act I fucking loved, and where they go with it, because dude, they go full on Lovecraft. This like goes into the old ones and the Necronomicon and all that fucking. It's very, very cool. Again, great set design, great practical effects. The Necronomicon is fucking awesome looking. I mean, I wouldn't put it up against Raimi's necessarily, but it's still really fucking awesome. And then this third act happens, and I was like, holy fuck, I can't believe this. And then there was even a post-credits thing that I was like, oh, so nice. Like, so definitely when you watch it, wait for the post-credits thing. I don't know if it means they have plans for something else, or I don't know, but it was so fucking cool. A nod to another movie character. Oh, I really, really liked it. I recommend it, man. And I don't know, I think even if you didn't like the original, I think you could like this. And I think if you liked Color Out of Space, I think there's something here for you. That's all I'm going to say. There's some parallels later on in the movie. I love that there's this kind of Lovecraft, like we're at the point now, and it's kind of like this with King too, where like people are able to do like a better job with it. So we're getting kind of a rash of stuff that's like, this is better than, and definitely Stuart Gordon's was more his movie than it was a Lovecraft adaptation. So I'm not saying it's better than that, but he kind of did his own thing with it. So at any rate, but I really liked it. So kudos to everybody involved, Fangoria and Shudder and RLJE and Tate Steinsick and Barbara Crampton, everybody else. Just kudos. I fucking really, really liked it. So, okay. Ray, hit me.
Sorry, you kind of threw me off.
I'm sorry. I drank like a pot of coffee right before we started, so I'm jacked. So just throwing that out there. So, okay, hit me.
I don't know. Let me look at my list here.
I do want to talk about at some point the movie that you mentioned in a text to me this morning that you weren't going to talk about because you didn't like. I would like to touch briefly on that at some point. You don't have to lead with it.
Okay. Oh, you know what is one thing? Okay, I'll come back to something I watched. And I wanted to touch on, because I did listen to the podcast you put out last week. I wasn't able to, unfortunately, attend. But you said you gave a movie a review that I was really surprised by, and that was Porno. I was surprised you liked it, because I know, I heard. And I think I didn't mention it because I saw it like about maybe a couple months ago. I think on Canopy. I saw it on, yeah.
Oh.
And I didn't. And the thing was, I mean, it's fine. People can like what they like.
Yeah,
I certainly like things that people don't like.
No, man, Duel at 40 paces.
What surprised me was that, and I think it was the reason I didn't like it, was it felt to me like, how should I put this? It felt to me like the Kevin Smith horror movie he would have made if he had made one back when he was doing like Mallrats and shit like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because it has a lot of like comedy, and like the comedy like is so centered in a certain way, and like the thing that you mentioned, the injury that the one character goes through, just felt so much to me like a Kevin Smith kind of joke that I was like,
man,
like,
there was no joke about that. That was fucking rough, dude. That was.
It was rough, but I mean, it just, I don't know, it didn't hit me right, I guess.
I could see that.
I just surprised that you liked it. I was like, wow, that's shocking. I would have not put money on that, but that's cool. Let me see. What did I see? You know what? I'm going to talk about that. I saw it because it just hit Shudder. I think it's worth checking out. I watched the New York Ripper.
Oh, is it on Shudder now?
Yeah, it's a Fulci movie.
Yeah.
I liked it. I found that I tend to like the weird giallos. Because there was a couple months, there was like I think it was, I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but during October, I watched Blood and Black Lace.
Great movie.
Of all things on Turner Classic Movies app.
Great movie.
Which is good, but it's good, but for some reason I tend to like the really odd ones. Like I like Stage Fright. I think it's really bizarre with the guy with the owl mask on the entire time. And New York Ripper is just so crazy because you have that killer who's calling the cop and talking in a Donald Duck voice.
Yeah, because he wears a duck mask, right?
No, he doesn't wear a duck mask. He just talks in the duck voice. And he does it too when he's slashing at women. It's hilarious. Like he's like, you think you're going somewhere? I'm going to stab you. And then he calls the cop and he's like, you're so stupid. You're not going to catch me. And it's hilarious. The first time I heard it happen on the movie, I didn't know what to expect, and I just started laughing. And then I forgot to laugh later on, but it's so crazy. And it's just one of those perfect giallos where honestly, the identity of the killer comes out of nowhere. It's very typical of those movies.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're just because I remember they introduced characters towards the middle, and I was like, wait, okay, so he's been important from the beginning? Because I thought it was just about the cop. The cop's been the one that's been here consistently. But I don't know. It's very odd, and it's very gritty. It feels like it's obviously New York in the 80s, and I think that maybe they just did the outdoor shots. With those giallos, sometimes it's hard to tell because sometimes it's indoor shots somewhere else. And it's weird enough to really enjoy. And since it's just at Shudder, I'd say check it out. It's a lot of fun.
That's funny because on the last episode I reviewed the Iban Press The Beyond, the comic, right? Now it's marvelous. And I struck up the Shawn Lewis, the head of that company, hit us up on through email after we heard the episode, and I had ordered, as soon as I finished, I ordered the Gates of Hell trade, immediately. Mm-hmm. And I'd been wanting to read it anyway. And, like I talked about last time, I was, the way that I got into their stuff, it looked great. But it's kind of expensive, but it's because it's so independently done, and it's very much worth the money. It's very lavish. But I ordered the first issue of The Beyond. I loved it. So then I ordered 2, 3, and 4 when they had the pre-order for 4. So I just got them, read them. So then I immediately turned around and bought the Gates of Hell trade. Absolutely worth the money. And I haven't read it yet, but I just got it. But he sent us some other stuff, for review purposes. And one of the things he sent us is the Maniac collection they did. And I just got it today, so I haven't read it yet. But there is an issue in that where it's New York Ripper versus Maniac. Ooh. And I just flipped through it about an hour before we started, or a couple hours before we did this, started this podcast, and there was an image of somebody in a duck mask, and it called to mind the fact that the killer speaks like Donald Duck. So I'm like, oh, and having never seen New York Ripper, I had just assumed, knowing that he spoke in that voice in the movie and seeing the mask, that the mask was in the movie. So I'm definitely going to watch New York Ripper now that it's on Shudder, and I'll rewatch Maniac and then read that stuff, and then I'll pass this stuff along to you guys as well so you can read it.
That sounds cool. I want to check that out because, I've watched Maniac. I feel like I need to do a rewatch of Beyond before I read any comics. It's been a while since I've seen that.
I think Maniac will be easier to, the Beyond, and I'm going to assume like House by the Cemetery and the Gates of Hell stuff it's all part of this where they're kind of doing that. I was talking last time about they're kind of unearthing the story that's between the lines, and now it's going to bleed into this thing next year, which I'm super excited for, the Escape from Beyond. But yeah, I mean, they're just flushing out and expanding on his mythology the way people do to Lovecraft now. And I think it's super cool because the Fulci stuff, it's like all about what's between the lines, like it is with Lovecraft. So it's cool to see it, getting other iterations and stuff. So yeah, I mean, but the Maniac stuff is a little bit more, it's not as deep. It's wacko. Go. Yeah. So yeah. Chris, what else?
Let's see. All right, last night I actually just got around to watching Freaky.
Oh, Vince Vaughn, and I forget the actress's name, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah, Freaky Friday, but one of them is a serial killer.
Directed by it's directed by Christopher Landon, who also did Happy Death Day, right? Or at least directed Happy. No, yeah. He did.
Yeah, he wrote and directed Happy Death Day, Happy Death Day 2U, and the Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
Okay. I loved Happy Death Day. I did not like the sequel at all. I'm not holding it against him. Just, whatever. But so how was Freaky?
Freaky, I enjoyed it. It accomplished what it set out to do. Mm-hmm. It's very, very trope heavy in a lot of ways. But, just looking at the poster, watching the minute and a half long trailer, you know exactly what it is when you're going into it.
Yes.
So if you don't take it too seriously, you'll have a ball.
How is so is it? Well, so
how was Vince Vaughn playing a 16-year-old little girl? Great.
Okay, all right. So I was going to say two-part question because I like Vince Vaughn a lot, and I think he has obviously he can do comedy. He can do dramatic as well, but there have been, I'm thinking of the second season of True Detective where I don't really even think it's his fault, but you can see him swinging for the fences and missing so much. And again, I don't know that I think it's his fault, but it was rough to watch, and it put me off for a little bit for a lot of people involved in that show. So it's a horror comedy, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's a horror comedy. It's a Blumhouse production. I mean, yeah, it's a horror comedy. It's one of these things where if you did enjoy the Happy Death Day films and the Scout's Guide, you're going to enjoy this one too.
Okay.
It's not heady at all. Do they really get in that much depth as to why they switched places? They don't really delve into any kind of mythos really about it, other than there's just some ancient sacred magical knife. That's kind of about it. They don't really get too far into it. The whole main premise is is about Vince Vaughn being this 16, 17-year-old girl trying to get her body back from the killer.
Right. Okay. I just realized while you were saying that about the mystical magical knife or whatever, they've already said it's in the same universe as Happy Death Day, which
yes, which Christopher Landon, I guess in an interview, he said that he would definitely be interested in doing some sort of a crossover between Freaky and Happy Death Day, since it is kind of in that same universe.
I think that'll probably end up happening.
I would be very happy with that. He even pitched the title for it, which no brainer. It's Freaky Death Day.
Is the tone of Freaky more like the first, the second, or is it kind of down the middle, or is it?
Unlike the Happy Death Days that were rated PG-13, Freaky is an R-rated film. So it is more in line with the Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. When the gore is there, there's gore. I'll put it this way: there is a particularly good kill involving a table saw.
No, nice. Always a good means by which to kill a teenager or anyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think. Let me see. I mean, there's at least a 9, 10, person body count.
Okay.
Somewhere right around in there. But yeah, it does a good job at blending the humor with the gore, which for a film like that, that's really all you can ask for.
I agree. I definitely want to see it. I wanted to see it before, regardless of my hangups about the second death.
Now, one thing I did find out in looking into this a little bit was the original title for it, which evidently they couldn't do for a number of reasons. But the original title was going to be Freaky Friday the 13th.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So for obvious reasons, they weren't allowed to do that. Which was fitting because the whole thing does happen to take place. I think they even point out, it starts on, Wednesday, February 10th or 11th, I guess. Yeah. And
Right.
That kind of culminates on Friday the 13th. So it wasn't just like they're trying to, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, remember that horror film, Friday the 13th?
Yeah, right.
So it did make sense in that sense. But, but good film. I enjoyed it. It's a good popcorn movie. I probably, unless you're absolutely diehard and gung-ho to see it, I wouldn't spend the $10, $15, however much the VOD is, wait for Netflix, something like that.
Yeah, or it'll come down. I mean, the way they're the COVID ticket, basically what I've been calling the COVID ticket, where it's like, on Prime you see it's like early look or something like that. They have all these movies that are in theaters wherever the fuck theaters are open, presumably in COVID denying areas of the United States.
Yeah.
I know the price tag is often like $19.
Yeah, it's a $20 price tag, and it's currently streaming on YouTube, Amazon Prime, and Google Play.
Okay.
The Universal Picture. So it'll probably end up going to either Amazon or Netflix.
Exactly. Cool. Ray, what do you got?
Well, you know what? Another thing that, because Shudder dropped it, I was like, you know what? I've been curious about those. Let me go ahead and check them out. I watched, so far, 3 of the Mario Bava movies. I watched Black Sabbath, Black Sunday, and The Body and the Whip. They're good. They're a little bit dated. I mean, they're all from like this 60s, well, at least the ones I watched so far, like from the 60s, 70s. And they are a little bit overly dramatic at points, or a little bit soap opera-y, because almost like there's in almost every one there's like some kind of like guy who's just met girl or is engaged to girl, loves girl, wants to take her away from whatever's happening in the area, and you get these scenes where it's like, I love you and I'm going to keep loving you, so we need to go. Leave this cursed place, that kind of thing. But they're entertaining as far as like building blocks of horror films go, and the imagery's great. Like in the Whip and the Body, and in I think it's Black Sunday. Those are both in color. And not to say that the other one, not to say that Black Sabbath, which is in black and white, looks bad. It doesn't. It looks good. It's just that once you move from black and white to color, you got interesting color pops and choices and things like that.
Yeah.
And really knows how to work with shadows and things like that. It has a real gothic feel to it. But the other one, I mean, Black Sabbath is still good. It's black and white, but it's quality. Like they're definitely, as I said, like building block, formational horror films. So they're worth checking out. They're worth watching, and definitely entertaining. Not boring or like you're gonna feel like you're wasting time. There definitely are things that are worth investing yourself in. Like if you like because I went through a similar tear last month with what's his name, totally blanking on his name, Vincent Price.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Price stuff. You're gonna like the Bava stuff. It's good. I mean, it's one's an actor, one's a director, but it definitely is building block horror. It's definitely like, oh, now I know where they kind of got that kind of look from, where they got that kind of lighting palette or things like that. So they're definitely worth checking out. They're good films.
So the interesting thing is, I've seen. My boss is a huge Bava fan, so I was telling him the other day when I saw those dropped, and he was like, definitely watch Kill Baby Kill for sure, and Whipping the Body.
The Whipping the Body's good. The only thing that I didn't like about it, and this is just obviously, I can't. I'm going to borrow the term from Tarantino and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They have that Babylon style of filming where like everyone was obviously Babel. Everyone's talking in their own native language.
Yeah.
So that's why they had to go back and dub it. But it was the one thing that killed me. It killed it for me in Whipping the Body because Christopher Lee's in it. And when I saw him, I expected it to be Christopher Lee's voice.
It's not.
Coming out of this character, and it's not. And it killed me. I was like, oh, damn. How are you going to not use Christopher? How did they not bring him in on post-production and go, okay, you just have to you have to dub your own lines? Because it just killed me. You're just sitting there, and you're like, oh, that's not Christopher Lee's voice.
Let's talk about the black tapes. So tell me about – I don't want to go spoilers. I would love to do an episode where we just say at the beginning there's spoilers involved, and we talk about it. But tell me about your experience with the black tapes.
Yeah, so this one I discovered on Spotify, just kind of browsing around for different podcasts, and I knew absolutely nothing about it going into it, other than that it was just a serialized audio drama. Pretty much what sucked me in was the title and the cover image.
Yeah. Kind of a little Red Riding Hood, a little bit, not exactly, but a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm pulling up the Wikipedia here so I can read off what the basic premise is.
So wait, let me give you.
Yeah.
It is exactly. I don't know if I heard somebody. I heard somebody say this, and I don't know where I heard somebody say it, but it's exactly the first thing that struck me about it. So it's Serial, not the food, but the podcast. Serial, the first season of Serial, and the X-Files married. It's exactly what it is, and it's so like Serial. Like they really, and it's on purpose. Like people, I feel like might get turned off and be like, dude, they're totally ripping us off. They're not. It's fiction. It's easy to forget that it's fiction. But like Laurie Henry, who does Alex Regan, the main character, she clearly studied Serial.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And as did the creators, Terry Miles and Paul Bay. Like, and they use it to great. It's the format, even the music, everything about it sounds like Serial.
Yeah. Okay, so so for people who haven't heard of it, I'll just run through what the basic plot is. So the overall thing, it starts as a biography on a paranormal investigator, Dr. Richard
Strand.
Thank you. He is a skeptic, and his whole thing is that he is trying to debunk the supernatural to the point where he's offered, I want to say it's like $1 million reward or something, if somebody can prove to him that the supernatural is in fact real. So Alex Regan, who is the host slash the investigative journalist who is doing this biography on him, she becomes interested in his collection of unsolved cases, which they call the Black Tapes. So overall, it turns into this very X-Files type thing where each episode they are watching these black tapes, or kind of his paranormal cold cases, and trying to look at them from a new light, and then trying to dig a little bit more with her investigative journalistic background, and it very quickly turns into they get kind of pulled into this world of occultism and intrigue, and it's very well written. It's very well acted. And it's really interesting too, because it really starts to delve into like math and music theory, as well as like just like weird little like historical stories.
Garfield, Pythagoras, like they really tie some. I've seen some criticism that they get a little bit too wide, but I thought up until it's 3 seasons. The first 2 seasons are 12 episodes. The third season is 6 episodes. And what I didn't realize, it started 2015. I think it ended in 2017. But in 2018, they updated the 6th episode of the 3rd season, which is the final episode. They updated the description from saying final episode to season 3 mid-season
finale.
In other words, there will be more, which is fucking good, because I will say I think it's worth the journey, but I did not like the ending at all. I was like, it
was a very cliffhanger.
It wasn't even I don't even think it was cliffhanger. I think it was just you know what it was? It was like, and I like the end of The Sopranos, but it was like, we don't have anywhere else to go with this unless like we've opened this Pandora's box. It's so huge. We would either have to keep going and really like, I don't even know, or we can just kind of like bring it down to the head of a pin and just close it out. And it just doesn't work.
It's neat to see that a style of fiction that started way back. I mean, Jonathan Swift did it in with his writing, where you were the ploy with the selling of what is the name of that one? Robinson Crusoe, was that the author was writing the story as told to him by Robinson Crusoe years after he had been on the island. And so the book was actually originally, it was fiction, but it was sold as, no, this is the true story of this guy telling it to Swift, who then wrote it. Oh, so it's just neat that fictional style that like, no, this is a true story.
Right.
Is still being done, and it's so cool that it's moved itself into this new form. Yeah. Well, let me see here. Okay. Here's a couple that I could talk about. I guess I'm going to honestly pair these together, and that's because they're foreign language films, and they're both on Shudder. One is German, one is French. And that is Angst and Among the Living. Angst, oh God, it's another deeply unpleasant film. It's like the German version of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Oh man,
it's a hard one to watch. It's unpleasant. It's almost in a documentary style. Like it almost
Heinrich.
Feels.
What, Chris?
I said, so it's Heinrich. Portrait of God's serial killer.
Yeah, there you go. But it feels almost like a found footage movie, but it's not, because it doesn't have the look of that. It's just that it almost feels like it, because it does this thing where it opens with it opens with this description of who's going to be your main character, the serial killer, and a doctor who's talking off screen where you're looking at slides, and he gives you the guy's whole background, and then the movie starts and the guy gets out of prison and right away he kills someone and steals their car, and then he goes into a restaurant and quickly eats a meal looking very odd and suspicious, and then leaves there, breaks into a house because he thinks it's abandoned. The people come home. He ends up killing all the people that live in the house in a fairly realistic, hard-to-watch manner. And the whole time he's doing this narrating off screen, talking off screen, where he's telling you about his life and how hard things have been and how much of a thrill he gets from killing, or like why he's doing the things he's done, and the terrible things that have happened to him in his life that has made him into this. So it does this thing where you're like, wow, am I supposed to have sympathy for him? It's hard to watch. Very much in the same way that Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is hard to watch. It's just, imagine if Henry had a narration where Henry was telling you about all the abuses he went through by his mother and like other people growing up, and then about how much he was enjoying killing people. Like, that's what Angst does. And it's hard to watch. It's very much in that cinema of like, I don't know, if you like that cruel kind of like serial killer, like sympathy for the devil is what I would call it, cinema, then check it out. It's for you. Otherwise, not quite horror. Doesn't feel like it in the same way that Henry doesn't. Among the Living, though, is great. It's French. I don't want to give a whole lot away. I'll give the basic setup. These three friends, boys that are probably about 10, 12 years old, probably about 12 years old, all play hooky from the, what is it called? When you have to go after school and stay there. Detention. Thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Detention, and are walking. First, they're walking through the forest, and then they find this place with these abandoned cars, which they figure out is an old abandoned movie set, and they find a woman who's trapped in a car, and she's clearly like tied up and gagged, and they start arguing with each other like, maybe we should save her. How do we save her? Why do we know the guy's going to come back? And then they start to hear rumblings. They go hide, and the killer comes back out, and they then are struggling with, what do they do? Do they save her? Do they just run away? And it comes back on them, and it's pretty good. I thought it was pretty interesting, and like the killer was really fun. But yeah, it's totally worth a watch.
Well, okay, so then we'll call it on that. For the Horror Vision podcast, I'm Shawn.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ray.
Boom.